WNBA 2024 playoff predictions. Can Caitlin Clark lead the Fever to a shock title? Our writers pick the champion, key players, and dark horses as the WNBA postseason tips off on Sunday. Claire DeLune, Brian Armin Graham, Stephanie Kaloy, and Andrew Lawrence. Saturday, September 21st, 2024, 9:00 BST. Share. What I'm most looking forward to. Obviously, there is a large contingent of fervent, passionate WNBA fans that are not new to this whatsoever. But I'm looking forward to the first WNBA playoffs when the rest of the sports world has finally caught up. High-profile national TV coverage, dramatic storylines, podcast hand-wringing. It should all be there this time around. And it's about time. CDL. The semifinal showdown between the Liberty and the Aces. This year's clash of the super teams and rematch of last year's WNBA finals will come one stage earlier than expected after Las Vegas slipped to the 4th seed following an up-and-down regular season. But count out Aya Wilson and the two-time defending champions at your peril. Bag. At this point, thanks to the absolutely unhinged behavior of the Phoenix Mercury's social media team, seeing 42-year-old Diana Taurasi take part in what appears to be her final postseason. SK. Minnesota, playing spoiler. The Lynx went a blistering 13-1 after the Olympic break, the league's hottest streak by far. That includes a 9-point win over top seed New York just a few weeks ago. While Minnesota aren't what they were at their peak when Maya Moore, Simone Augustus, and crew were dominating the league, the 2024 team have become a formidable force in their own right with all-stars Nafisa Collier and Kayla McBride. Caitlin Clark is primed to play spoiler. She's a downright revelation who came into the league with an astronomical amount of hype that she has somehow managed to rise to, and then some. She had a rough start to the year, understandable with so little time between the NCAA tournament and WNBA training camp. But she's hit her stride, and while the lower seed Fever are underdogs against the formidable Sun, they're prime candidates to crash the second-round party. CDL. Somehow managing to exceed expectations. Be honest, when the Fever stumbled to a 1-8 start with an exhausted Clark doling out turnovers like Halloween candy, it was hard to imagine the sort of turnaround that came to pass. But they've been one of the WNBA's hottest teams since the Olympic break behind their rejuvenated rookie star, finishing with more wins, 20, than Indiana's past 2 seasons combined, 18. Bag. So fun. I unapologetically stan. It has been incredible to see the sport's astronomical growth, and it's impossible to deny that Clark is a major part of the reason why. She is a generational talent like Leslie, Swoops, Bird, Taurasi, Parker, Moore, and Wilson. She's amazing. SK. The Tim Tebow of women's hoops. Everyone has an opinion, and will express it whether they watch the game or not. No doubt, she has the once hapless Fever well positioned for a deep run. It's just, I'm not really trying to hear all the complaining if she doesn't win it all in year one, a high seed at risk of going out early. Speaking of the Connecticut Sun, they're my pick for most vulnerable high seed. They're playoff battle-tested and a well-oiled machine with an impressive defense. In theory, they should be able to handle a young and playoff green Fever. But I know better than to bet against Caitlin Clark when the stakes are highest. CDL. This time last year, the Las Vegas Aces were looking like one of the best teams we've ever seen in men's or women's basketball, at least since the KD Warriors. But since then, their defensive efficiency has slipped back into the pack, while once manageable depth issues have cost them. Their biggest problem? Sending 6 players to the Olympics, including the core 4 of Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, and Kelsey Plum, creating a fatigue factor that threatens to doom their three-peat bid. I don't see how it could be possible, but the Aces. I mean, this is Wilson's world that we are all just living in, and they are by far my favorite team to watch. But the Sun and Lynx are not playing around, and it's hard to imagine a scenario in which the Liberty fumble this opportunity. SK. The Connecticut Sun, who have the misfortune of opening their playoff campaign against the resurgent Fever. Among other things, they're not going to get away with guarding Clark as aggressively as they did to start the season. For one thing, she's adjusted. For another, she's the franchise. Long shot to win. It's hard to call the defending champs, 2 years running, at that, a long shot to win it all, but the Las Vegas Aces are certainly not heading into the postseason as favorites. That being said, early season struggles aside, they have a superweapon in Aya Wilson, someone who is not only the clear MVP of the league, but who is having one of the greatest individual seasons in modern basketball history. If the Liberty meet the Aces in the second round, as I'd expect, they're in for a hell of a fight. Seattle Storm. If Jewell Loyd is fully recovered from her knee injury, and the Storm can get through a best-of-3 first-round series with a Vegas side that looks as vulnerable as they have in years, their reward is a date with the top-seeded Liberty. But any team with Loyd, Nneka Ogwumike, and Skylar Diggins-Smith in the fold will be a tough out.
Bag.
I need to preface this by saying I don't think it will happen, but I think it's what the people want to hear. The Indiana Fever win it all. SK. Atlanta Dream. They were the luckiest of the losers, arguably sneaking into the playoffs only because Angel Reese fell injured before finishing her maiden season in Chicago. The Dream don't lack for talent, not least former center Tina Charles, who's been there and won a title and a league MVP. What's more, the Dream have been giving teams fits all year. If they should somehow manage to take a pair off New York in that perilously short first-round series, watch out. Almost important player this postseason. Nafisa Collier will not win MVP because her competitor is Wilson, who will rightfully win the award, maybe unanimously. But Collier is absolutely having an MVP-caliber season, and it's largely on the back of that I think, spoiler, the Lynx are the team to beat this postseason. CDL. Chelsea Gray. The point guard's return from an injury suffered during last year's WNBA Finals sparked the Aces' early summer turnaround. Wilson is going to do her thing on both ends of the court. But if Vegas are going to flip the switch for the playoffs and reassert their defensive identity, Gray will need to do all the things that make life easier for Plum and Young.
Bag.
Aya Wilson, Aya Wilson, Aya Wilson. SK. Chelsea Gray. She makes the Aces go, and they struggled for momentum while she was out with a foot injury suffered during last year's title run. But now that the point guard is back at the helm, the Aces are firmly back on course to three-peat.
Al.
The Aces get swept out of the East semis. They just won't have enough left in the tank.
Bag.
The Fever make a mad rush and knock out the Sun early on, or Diana Taurasi doesn't get a single technical foul the entire playoffs.
SK.
At some point, either Kamala or Tim Walz drops in, especially if the finals wind up back in a battleground state or Minnesota make a deep run. The champion will be